Manever I say ma PENDREAM TV. PENDREAM TV there, I see them yopo.
But this is a victory budget. 2024 Nkunim. Nkunim is chief. Nkunim is victory, right? Victory. See, he's in white.
But you know,
see your colleague is in white. Victory.
If you have gone through all the budgets, they all come with slogans.
Yes.
From 2017.
Yes, it's normal. Ejumapa
delivered unemployment.
Eh?
Ejumapa delivered unemployment. We are now 14%
unemployment. Increased the unemployment rate.
Ejumapa.
Okay.
Year of roads. Finally, they said that we cannot build all the roads.
Okay.
You remember the chief was crying there.
Yes.
About, that the dust has actually driven away all their goals.
Yes.
That was a year of roads.
They are asthmatic.
So, for Nkunim, you see why he called it Nkunim. He was standing before the people who were fighting him. And then the 98.
Oh, Collins and his people.
We did also almost Nkunim.
That's what it means.
Oh, yeah. Oh. You know, Ekutia.
So it's not victory for the Ghanaian people.
No. Victory for Ken Ofori-Atta.
That he has defeated
them. He has defeated them who wanted to remove him. Oh. That was Nkunim. Oh. Okay. But how can you bring our economy to its knees and say Nkunim? Are you an enemy of the economy or what?
But when you went through the budget, didn't you see signs that indeed we had turned the corner, we were on the path to recovery, and therefore victory was in sight?
Also, the victory is anticipated.
It's in sight.
Okay.
I mean...
So, you want us to discuss that?
Yes.
Okay. Randy, one of the victory that is in sight was a deception. One, has it actually produced a 1 trillion Ghanaian economy?
He says he will at the end of the financial year.
Okay. So, if you want to follow promises, since when did we start celebrating projections in this country?
They give us hope.
Yeah,
they give us something to look forward to.
Has the hope ever arrived? When these people said that every Ghanaian will get a bank account, didn't they collapse the banks? The banks that were supposed to
Momo account is a bank account.
No, I'll come to that. Okay. The banks that were supposed to go and open the account, they collapsed them. Financial institutions, 422 of them. They gave us the direct opposite. Then people decided that they cannot keep their monies at home, so they went and opened wallets with Momo. They followed there and removed their part with e-levy. Or you are not aware that they introduced e-levy?
I'm aware.
To go and take their share from that money that ended up on the wallets. When they told Aboso people that they have reduced taxes and they were celebrating, today, do they celebrate? Go and ask them whether they even listen to the budget anymore. Today, the posts are empty. When they went to Agbogboloshi and promised the people of Agbogboloshi that they will build 32-seater toilets. You remember that story? You probably have the video. The next day, they went and sacked the people who they are going to build the toilets for them from there. They evicted them. So will you now be there to go and ask them where is the toilet? When they said that within 18 months there will not be toilet or water problems, are we not still drilling boreholes in this country? So as for these people and promises, it is just to manage your expectation, but they will never deliver them. So that was one. He indicated that in the budget that they have impacted the lives of Ghanaians positively. 54% inflation. Is that how you impact Ghanaians positively? 54% depreciation of the currency. Double-digit deficit consistently for 3 years. 17% in 2020. 2021. 12.1%, 2022, 11.8% deficits, which culminated in Ghana being declared debt unsustainable. Is that how you impact our life positively? When they said they impacted our lives positively, we couldn't even buy the things that we were buying when they had not impacted our lives. You remember the calipo they were drinking?
Mm-hmm.
It was 50 pesos. Why are they not drinking it today? It's 7 cedis. The calipo.
One calipo is 7 cedis.
Yes. That's why they are not buying and drinking. You see them drinking again. They can't drink.
7 Ghana?
Yes.
From 50 pesos?
50 pesos. Calipo. Konkonte. The Almighty faced the wall. Olonka was 120 cedis. Now you need 500 cedis to buy one Olonka. That's how come Konkonte is no more regarded as a poor man's food. So is that how you impact? When they said they impacted our lives positively, they spent our money flying private jets. When they said they impacted us positively, they spent our money to build the biggest trench called the Cathedral. When they said they impacted our lives, they brought PDS to swindle Ghanaians. So when these people tell you that they are impacting your life in this budget, and they are telling you that you are better off, you have a lot of money, you put your hand in your pocket and the pocket is even torn. There's nothing there. They came and told us that they will grow the economy to 1 trillion. Randy, if you move the economy in nominal terms from 850 billion to 1 trillion, it is actually 1 trillion 50 billion. That is a 22% growth in your nominal GDP. Then we say, okay, so is this not influenced by price? Is it not because prices are going up? They say, no. Prices are not going up. In fact, we are bringing prices down from 35% to 15% end-year inflation, which means that you are gaining in real terms 20%. What then means is that your growth of 22% in nominal GDP is influenced by real output. So if you are growing in real output by 22%, you are gaining in real value by 20%. Your economy should be growing at least 25% real GDP. So when I ask you, how is your real GDP going to perform? You say 2.8. Randy, this is voodoo. In fact, even when you are trying to cook the numbers, you are not smart about it. Then we investigated that. You have an IMF program. And one of your key deliverables is what we call the Monetary Policy Consultation Clause, which requires you to sit with the IMF, present the data to project your inflation. And in your recent monetary policy consultations, you arrive at a range of inflation. And inflation is normally given as a target range. And your target range that you agreed with IMF is 29.8% with asymmetry of 4%. That means 29.8% plus or minus 4%. If you subtract, you come to the lowest end, is 25.8%.
33.8.
It's 33.8 as your highest. You are in between this. Does 15% looks like any of these range? Meanwhile, your average, as determined by this monetary policy consultation and this range, your average annual inflation is agreed at 27%. Clearly, you are cooking the inflation. The GDP is influenced largely by price and not output. You get it? So, you cannot see anything good other than cooking numbers to look good. And cooking the numbers and projecting that it will happen. When it doesn't happen, 2025 is the time we will see that it has not happened. Where we can be? 2025. Will you call him to ask him? Now, he tells you that, we are going to slow down our deficit. He said, okay, how are you going to do it? He said, I'm going to increase my revenue to 176 billion. Okay. So we say, okay, how do you arrive at that? Because you are saying that you are growing your revenue by 0.9% of GDP. If we take the indicators that you are giving as top line, you are saying that your current revenue is 15.7% and it will increase to 16.8%. That gives you 1.1% increase. Good. But you are projecting that by the year end, don't forget that we are in November, so you are fairly certain about your outturn. And you are saying that your outturn will be 133% billion. 1.1% of 16.8, that GDP of 1 trillion and 50 billion gives you 11 billion. So if you add the 11 billion to this, you get 144 billion. So where did you get the 176 billion? So you've built into the 176 billion unrealizable revenue that is not underpinned by your revenue measures. And that amounts to almost 32 billion. Now you have used this to build an expenditure of 226 billion. It means that included in this 226 billion is 32 billion you know you can't get the money. But you know why they did that? It's an election year. Election-related expenditures is being built into this 226. So if they don't realize the revenue, they will borrow, but they will stay within 226 billion. And you say, oh, they are within the appropriation. They have not violated the appropriation. Meanwhile, they have already succeeded in adding 32 billion there. So you see them spending like hell in elections, and yet their expenditure is not being breached in terms of the ceiling.
Let me find out something from you. And I guess for most people who are watching us, they might be questioning the relevance of, first of all, the submission of a budget to Parliament, the work of the committees in Parliament, the relevance of the debate of the budget. So, for example, you have interrogated the issue of growing the economy, creating a 1 trillion cedi economy, not on the back of pricing, as the finance minister claims. And you say that when you interrogate the figures, it does not add up. You have interrogated
the revenue numbers.
And you're saying that it doesn't add up. And that 32 billion has just been built in so that the expenditure of 200 and something, 226 billion. So what you're saying is that the 167 that government says that it expects to get 176 must rather be minus 32.
Good.
And so we are here then talking about some 144. So the 144 is what we should be talking about. And that is if even we are going to achieve 100%.
Exactly.
So if you look at the 144 against the 226, what it means is that you're looking at a deficit of close to 60 billion.
Exactly.
60 billion. Okay. But if you then include the 32, then you're talking about a deficit.
A potential deficit of about 92 billion.
Yes. Now, so when such discoveries are made, does the processes not allow for the finance ministry to come back to Parliament to speak to these issues before an approval is made?
Okay, so Randy, that is the deficiency in our budget cycle. Elsewhere in England, for instance, you have the budget office, which does an independent analysis of government policy and projections. And it is such a respected body that if they make a pronouncement based on their analysis, people tend to believe that more than the government, and that gives you credibility crisis. But you may have a situation also where the budget itself, the policy that we normally approve, the economic policy, is brought to Parliament first for Parliament to debate the budget policy. And on the basis of that, it goes back to the executive to incorporate the inputs of Parliament before the estimates are developed. Unfortunately, we approve our budget in twofold at the same time. We approve the economic policy, which is what we are debating, and when we are approving the economic policy, there are elements that you disagree, there are elements that you agree, but you are not allowed to isolate those that you agree to approve and disapprove the ones that you don't agree. This is the entire economic policy. So you have to approve it in total. including what you disagree, or you disapprove it in total, including those that you agree. That is a defect. For instance, this policy document includes wages and compensation of employees. Do we disagree that workers should be paid? No, we agree. This budget includes development in constituencies. Do we agree or we disagree? Of course we agree. But we have elements there that we disagree. We cannot isolate them and decide on them alone. But if there are revenue measures, the good thing is that the revenue measures that require amendments to laws or new laws will have to be brought separately.
Like e-levy.
Like e-levy.
So that's how come you were able to deal with the e-levy.
E-levy, yes. So all the taxes that they are revising or introducing as new, they will come in their separate bills. Okay. Now, if they come in their separate, you can take them one on one and say, look, we disagree with this policy because we have issues with, say, e-levy, for instance. You will debate the principles of e-levy and decide on it. If we decide and the people who are against it are more, you don't even proceed to the next. But if it goes through at a policy level, then you can go and change, you make an impact by proposing amendments to the very clauses that you think are inimical. That you require a consensus. Otherwise, you can propose the amendments, and the amendments have to be put to a decision, a vote. And if you don't carry the vote, your amendments will be dismissed. So it is a very complex exercise of deciding what really...
So I get the point you're making.
Yeah.
I get the point you're making. But is this not some of the things that Parliament should have fought for changes? Because what I'm saying is that, and I'm just going by, you will hear calling soon, but I'm just going by what you're saying.
Yes.
That if, for example, the government is telling us that I expect to rake in revenue of 176 billion cedis, and I expect to spend 226 billion cedis. On the basis of that, I will record a deficit of 50 billion.
50 billion, yeah.
50 billion, okay. Now you are saying that, well, so the 50 billion will be a certain percentage of
GDP.
Yeah, so that will then determine
the deficit
that we are going to record for the year 2025.
Exactly.
And we have a certain threshold beyond which we shouldn't go past our deficit, not so.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you are saying that when you interrogate, because the 176 is not just given as an omnibus figure. There must be things that will lead us to build us to 176. You're saying that when you do these calculations on the basis of what the finance minister has provided, there's a shortfall of 32 billion.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if that is true, that takes the deficit to 82 billion
exactly.
cedis.
Yes.
With the expenditure still standing at 226.
Yes.
Is this not such a huge issue, if not a monstrous issue?
Yeah.
For which reason, both sides of the House, if they indeed agree with this revenue calculation, must halt and bring the finance minister to say that, look, we need further and better particulars on how you are going to achieve this 176. Because what we are seeing from your documentation shows that our deficit in 2025 for just the 2024 financial year will be 82 billion and not 50 billion.
Yes.
That is if we are even
able to achieve the
100%.
Yes.
And therefore, you must come and explain this to us even before we proceed.
Yeah.
Must this not be a very, very fundamental issue? For which reason Parliament, both sides must be able to say, pause. Let's get a clarification on this matter before we proceed further.
Yes, so I agree with you. My colleague will tell you that the politicking in the House makes it difficult for you to achieve consensus on both sides. So the other side is thinking of how do I get up to counter what he's saying. How do I get up to protect my government? As opposed to sitting down and trying to understand whether what you are saying have any merit at all. Look, Randy, it is even worse than what you are anticipating. You know why? You must borrow on the domestic market to finance this. Our international capital market is closed. We know that. Our domestic capital market is closed, except on the money market, where we are doing only treasury bills on the short end. Nobody is going to give government money for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, no. Because of DDEP and the fact that we are not debt sustainable, people are cautious. So government is only borrowing on the short end. That is the only spectrum available to government. Yet, this 60 and potentially 82 billion you are talking about must be borrowed by government. 2, the foreign financing that is not government, the government must make it up in the domestic market. If you put that 2 together in this budget, you are getting about almost 162 billion. Or less, about 120 billion. Okay. Then, because we are borrowing on the short end every week, we have come a full cycle. So every week there are maturities. If you aggregate all the maturities that we are supposed to refinance, you are getting to almost 120 billion. So in all, government must borrow 240 billion. We'll call it the gross financing needs. That 240 billion will all be borrowed in this economy. An economy that is left with only the short end of the market. So are you surprised that interest rates will be going up on the side of government because it must attract this money? The liquidity is not available, so it must attract it. In attracting the liquidity, you are actually setting the signal for the rate of interest that should be paid by the private sector. So you are looking for more money. You are safer to lend to. You are paying high interest rates. You are crowding out the private sector. I wasn't surprised because the first time I got some feedback that he was uncomfortable with what was going on.
Oh, really?
Yes, and in fact, Rooney responded to me.
When Rooney?
Yeah, when Rooney responded, and at the time he was doing pretty well for England.
Okay.
And Ray Rooney used his record at the World Cup to say that he was playing very well for them. You know, even though my focus was on Man United. At the time, you recall that when the budget
Bogatanga man has gone very far.
you recall that when the budget was read,
yes,
it was in the midst of the World Cup.
Right.
And obviously, there was no excitement in the budget. And the budget was basically flat, and all focus was on football. So I recall my leader, who was then the ranking member, Honorable Kesela Tuforsen, had called me and said, it appears there is no conversation around the budget. People don't seem to be excited about it. So what do we do? I said, well, we have to find innovative ways to draw people's attention to the issues in the budget. So I decided to find something around football because that was the season and people were very excited about football. And I decided to focus on the fact that the vice president had not delivered to the people what he promised, and also that he gave us very high hopes of being the whiz kids, you know, on the block, and the magic wand still hadn't worked. So I needed to find a way to do that. And at the time, we all know that Maguire, as talented as he is, was going through very difficult times. There were matches where he ended up struggling with Man United players in the heart of defense that led to goals. There were times that he would score himself. There were times that he would give assists to opponents. So I picked that and decided to build my debate around it.
But were those things applicable to the vice president?
Yes, they were applicable because Maguire was bought with pomp and pageantry, 80 million pounds. He was seen as the best defender out there in Leicester City, and when he came, there was quite high hopes. The same way that we had a lot of high hopes, Bawumia had been hyped as the best and the most talented economic thinker that we had, similar to what hopes we had about Maguire. But fast forward, we now saw that this man was scoring own goals, basically tackling all our economic fundamentals and destroying all of them. We saw the GDP was around 0.4%, not even up to 1%. We saw that our debt to GDP was very high. We had crossed the proverbial feared 70 mark. Interest rates were over the roof. The CD had depreciated by 54%. The inflation was around 54%. So quite everything that we thought was supposed to go in the right direction, we're heading in the wrong direction. And so there was quite a lot of similarity. The only difference is that, as I later found out, was that when Maguire's performances started improving, and I watched him, and he was doing excellently well, particularly when they had injuries to some of their key defenders. Raphael Varane was not available, and he stepped in. I saw that he was doing quite well, particularly for a player that there was so much uncertainty surrounding his future in the summer. You saw West Ham wanted to buy him. They basically agreed a fee, and the young man said, I'm going to stay and fight for my place. I am not going to negotiate personal terms. You know, then you see that he really takes that on. I became a bit worried because this was a young man that I could have destroyed his career with what had happened. It went viral. People started developing videos to show every single thing that I said. And for somebody who was not strong in the mind, anything could have happened. And I was pleasantly surprised that he took that on and made something good out of it. And so I thought he deserved an apology from me, but I needed the same platform to render that apology because I thought that platform was a very big platform and offered the opportunity to get the level of attention that I wanted it to get. And exactly that is what happened. But my regret is I was comparing a huge talent that was going through a difficult patch with a dead horse completely.
Okay, so